welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm here with the author of a book called House of Monstrous Women, which is by far one of my favorites of the year. I do not say that lightly. It was really, really good to the point that as soon as I finished my ARC, I passed it along to my coworker, who is a huge horror fan, and was like, "You need to read this book." And she just gave it back to me last night with a post-it note saying that it was fabulous. So you have the interest of a lot of librarians. And I cannot say enough about it. So Daphne, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about this book.
Hi, so thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here. House of Monstrous Women is essentially a novel set against the people power revolution, and it follows Josephine del Rosario as she goes into her childhood friend's home to play a very deadly game.
That is an understatement, honestly. And I think like there was a lot that I learned about this book. And one of the things I have to say, I have to give a shout out to my coworker, Catherine, who's the one I gave it to right after I finished it. She did the same thing I did. The minute she started reading this book, I saw her looking up the Marcos regime because here in America, we do not study much about other world conflicts or other countries' conflicts unless we get directly involved. We all know about World War II and World War One, and we know still some about, Vietnam, but we don't hear a lot about other things. And I found myself just really researching this whole thing that came to an end when I was in kindergarten, and learning a lot. And it was just this really good blend of historical and folk horror. I mean, I just loved it, and it is extremely scary to read for many reasons. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit, Daphne, about where you came to the idea of this book and about, like this time in history for people who are probably listening to this interview and maybe Googling it right now if they do not know what was going on at this moment.
Yeah. I hope they are Googling it because that was one of my goals when I wrote this book. But I have a degree in political science with a focus on Philippine government. But more than that, I was working as an intern at the Security Exchange Commission in Manila when Duterte, who is very like dictator light, was coming into power, and he was starting to prop up another politician who is part of the Marcos family. And during that time frame, I just saw my family members who lived through the dictatorship, who hated Marcos, slowly start to forget what had happened and like kind of whitewash him. And I saw kind of parallels here in America as well, where we're kind of ignoring the past and like making the same like, mistakes. And it was just so frustrating. And fortunately, my mother actually lived through that period of time. She's the exact same age as Josephine del Rosario when she was going through those events. So it was easy to marry together.
Yeah, I did a little research about Dark Day as well. And, again, it's like it really amazes me that people who grew up learning about something very specific and are like, oh, well, we can't ever let that happen again, completely overlook the fact that it's right in front of you. And people, and like it doesn't even have to be that far away. But let's get into the story. So Josephine comes from a family who opposed Marcos, and it did not end well for them.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just her and her brother who seem to have survived, and she's left with her family's crumbling estate and the staff there. They're trying really hard. She's trying so hard to keep what's left of her family's legacy, as well as her integrity, both her, just like her family's integrity, but also her personal integrity. And as a woman, she's being pursued by people who might want to marry her and might provide protection, but that is not what she wants. And she's invited to her childhood friend Hiraya's house to play a game. And so this is kind of where the folk horror meets the political historical horror, because as this is happening, you're getting snippets from some of the radio that was going on in Manila. The other two people who are invited to the house is her childhood friend Gabriella and her brother, who has been off in Manila in his own way, trying to, what he feels, preserve the integrity of his family, with Gabriella. And you know that there's just there's something that happened between all of these people that have brought them back to Haraya's house, and the games begin. So talk a little bit about the mythology behind who this family is and what this game is.
Yes, yes. This is one of my favorite parts because a lot of it was inspired by people my family knew. So the Ranico family is a family of swan. And I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's essentially Filipino vampires, sort of. Depending on the region you're at, they can either eat unborn babies, or they'll eat corpses, or they can turn into vampires, or they can shapeshift. But in Carigara, which is my mother's hometown, essentially a Swang live in family, and only one of them will be in a Swang at a time. And usually they're hidden in the family. And they can, in Carigara at least, shapeshift, and a lot of times use witchcraft. But my mom actually knew a family that was accused of being a Swang, like one of her high school friends was in that family. And the prejudice and bullying got so bad that entire family left Karigara and they changed their name. And so this is actually based on that family, which who we're still family friends with. Like when the daughters moved to Florida, we've hung out. It's totally fine. But I just thought that the persecution of these like women was awful. And I really wanted to integrate that into my novel. And then for other things like the witchcraft, I just have a fascination with it. All of it's based on real witchcraft, like the insects, the skulls, the dolls. There's a lot of that. And the Encanto, I have another story of that based on a sorcerer I met. But yeah, there's a lot of it.
Yeah, so it's like a matriarchal society, first of all, which was extremely interesting. And having having the brother there was sort of put him almost at odds with that. That not really only one person can win the game, but it's rare that more than one do, I think she says. And you just I don't want to just get into too many spoilers other than just say it is matriarchal. And it's interesting because Josephine, like I'd mentioned, she's being pursued by suitors, and she has no interest at all in being pursued by them. She has no interest in getting married.
Mhm.
She has other interests, is what I'm going to say. And it is kind of established early on. It's not too much of a spoiler to say that one could very easily say that she doesn't want to be with a man. You know, if she's going to
Yes,
be with anyone, it's not going to be a man. So I'm going to
I
say
think
that's not a spoiler. But I think her and her brother, they have a very different view of that, and he seems very focused on himself and his own, yeah. So, for him, he can establish, be like, well, I'll come home when I'm ready, but if you marry so and so, then you'll be protected. And Josephine's like, I don't want to be protected. So this is a reason why she wants to be winning this game, even though she knows that it puts her against Alejandro and also Gabriella. Um, and then Haraya, you get the sense that she's trapped in this situation as well. It's really just such an interesting, like, slow burn until it just really explodes. And the sense of dread between what you're hearing from what's going on in Manila and the build up to the game, because the whole, like, that's another thing that I really loved about this novel, and something that I think readers should understand is that the horror is there's a build up to it. It's not like you're reading, something that drops you right into the Hunger Games chapter 3, in chapter 3. Like, the game is the last quarter of the book, really. The world and just the sense of what's going on is the buildup. And that's where it feels also, again, we have historical horror. We have political and historical horror, I suppose, could be the same thing, depending. You have folk horror, which again is like the Encanto, which I again thought was very interesting because we're all familiar with Encanto, the movie that came out a few years ago, and I'm like, this is a very different kind of house. Yes, I loved it. But then you also have, you have the folk horror, you have the political, historical horror, but then you have the gothic part of it, which is, yes, you have, it's about a woman and a house and, isolation. So really, like, it's just this big tapestry of all of these things. And when it comes together and you finally really understand who this family is, how this system works, why Haraya's in this position as opposed to her sister, Sadapa, who's like another like character that kind of sort of haunts the narrative, without saying too much, even more so than the former matriarch. It really just starts to kick in. But you're taking this windy road there, which is about as difficult to figure out as the house that they're in. So, like, did you yourself, like, did you draw maps of this place, or did it constantly change on you while you were thinking of the flow of story?
Oh, that is a good question. I tried to draw a map, and then it very quickly unraveled into just chaos, because the house is chaos. But have you ever heard of the Winchester house? Yes.
Oh my goodness, the Winchester house is a really just crazy, crazy story. Yeah.
Yeah, so of course you know it's like a woman began to build in her house because she was haunted and hunted by ghosts, and the belief was is that if she ever stopped building, they'd get her. And I love that concept, and so I began to build that into the house itself. And House of Leaves, obviously, a huge inspiration for it.
Yeah,
But
my coworker, actually, that was one thing that she said when she had started reading the book. She said that she felt very much like the house reminded her, it evoked the feeling of House of Leaves.
yes, I'm glad that she felt that. I think it's honestly impossible to draw the house. There are certain nodes that seem static, but getting between those points is very, very difficult. So, yeah, it was a pleasure to write it. Very confusing to visualize it.
I again, really, this was just such a great book, and I'm talking around a lot of plot points on purpose because they are really important to how it all comes together. I will say there is another horror that comes in towards the end, which is more body horror, and it becomes quite grotesque. Was that hard for you to write without giving away what that is?
Yes, okay. So actually, House of Monstrous Women was far more grotesque in its initial version, and then my editors had me cut it back multiple times. So whatever it is now, it's so much tamer. I really enjoy horror, all of its splatter and just dread and everything about it. So I also really wanted to build a horror that was actually scary, and I'm hoping that that came across. So I was fine writing it. I actually enjoyed it.
I enjoyed reading it, so thank you very much. Yeah, there's one line, and I don't want to say what it is, that I think about a lot after I closed the book, that I was like, damn, that was messed up. I mean, there's a lot, but there is one particular line that I'm like,
I know what it is
I am
now.
never gonna forget this. Uh, yeah, it was great. I mean, really, this is an instant recommend to all of my horror fans. Everybody knows that is my comfort genre. I know people find that weird, but for me, there's something very cathartic about it, and about having it sort of contained. And this was just wild. What a great book. Thank you so much for writing it.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you with like the cathartism of horror, like having the worst possible things compressed into 300 pages and then having the protagonist overcome it. It's just so much easier than the horrors in day-to-day life.
For sure. I do have to ask, are you writing anything else after this, or did you need to kind of rest your mind?
Oh, no, no, no. I'm so excited. I'm writing now another Filipino folk horror set in the past. And this one's more inspired by Midsummer and a town that I visited in when I was researching this book. So there's going to be a lot of horror, might be some more body horror. But it's just, I'm really excited to get it out there. And I hope it'll be out next year.
I hope I get to read it next year.
Yeah, definitely you will. Okay, a book will definitely be somewhere on your doorstep.
So check out The House of Monstrous Women by Daphne Fama. I have to ask you, as a horror fan, from fan to fan, what are some of your favorite horror books, or just medium, things that maybe people don't necessarily know, or maybe things that everybody knows?
I am like a massive fan of Japanese and Asian horror. So there's this wonderful movie called The Medium that's in Thailand, and it's like a documentary. And there's so much folklore in it, and it's like it's a bit of a slow burn, but it's very, very good. I don't think there's I think I've seen most like mainstream Asian horrors out there, and I that was a huge inspiration for this book. Um, I feel like a huge nerd saying that, but I just think that there's a lot of untapped horror in the East and Southeast Asia. What about you, actually? Do you
Oh my
have any rec
goodness. That's a really good question. So first of all, I have to say, I mean, definitely this one is one that I'm going to be screaming about to everybody. It's funny, somebody asked me the other day what my like comfort show is, and I said that it was Stranger Things, which is it's got a lot in it that there is a lot of horror, but it's also a little campy on purpose, and and it's got a lot of like lovable characters and some good music. So for me, I mean, I can't like in the background with my kids, I can't watch that because they get terrified of things. So, with them, we watch things that I think are horror adjacent. Like we're big Gravity Falls fans,
Gravity Falls was so cool.
huge Owl House and Amphibia fans. We watch it constantly. It's always on in the background somewhere. Like I feel like, a lot of children's shows that kind of veer into a little bit of the horrific. Yeah, I do call Gravity Falls Baby's first cosmic horror because it really is, in
It
my
really
opinion.
is.
But as far as other things that I like, TV show wise, I like Orphan Black.
Mm, haven't.
Um, yeah, it's very good. But then along the lines of that, veering into books, The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey is very, very good. It is, I consider it horror. I don't know if they did when they started writing it, but to me it is. I also really like I like I think My Best Friend's Exorcism is one of my favorites. I really liked that. That was strangely cathartic. Um, yeah, it's like it's funny when it's like 90% of what you read and then you're just like, I like things. There's a book called Hell of a Book, which is one of my favorite books ever. And again, I don't necessarily consider it horror, but I think the things that happen in it are horrific because society-wise, it's by Jason Mott. That is a really good book. Um, yeah, I mean, I can go on and on. I will say that Chuck Tingle is a great writer.
Gosh, I've heard. Okay, look, I feel so bad. I feel like I should remember what he does.
So if you look up Chuck Tingle, he's known for writing. He came out on the scene like I think in like the mid-aughts, really writing like dinosaur erotica was kind of his thing.
Like,
He writes amazing horror. He's anonymous. Chuck Tingle is it's a pen name, and he wears a mask and sunglasses, but he writes beautifully. I really, really love his books. Cassandra Caw, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's fabulous.
also, I just remembered why I know Chuck Tingle. I read Countess Maskus like
Camp
earlier this year.
Damascus is one of the
Yes.
absolute best books, and Bury Your Gaze is even better. And I just finished Lucky Day. We're having him on the show for the third time in a row every year. It's become a thing. Um,
We'll tell him about his books.
yeah, no, he is just such a beautiful writer. Um, yeah, I mean, there is just a lot. There is a lot out there. But yours is absolutely fabulous. I just cannot say enough about it.
Thank you.
Oh, We Came to Welcome You by Vincent Torrado is so good. So, so good. Absolutely a instant recommend for horror fans as well.
Nice. I feel like I came away from this knowing so many good things that I didn't know before. So that's awesome.
And this is just, like if people, yeah, this is me throwing out my recommendations too.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're probably very well read in that matter. So,
Yeah, so again, so really quickly for those who are fans of horror or just for those who want to learn more about just this time period, talk just very briefly about your research when it comes to this book because I feel like this is one of those things that I probably should have asked earlier, but I would love to know. I mean, you had mentioned earlier that your mother was around during this time, but you also mentioned that you visited a village. Did you do some research tourism?
yeah. So, I mean, obviously, well, my mom runs a medical mission in the Philippines. So we go every year. And while we were there, my aunt, Tita Ronilda, found someone who practices like the old sorcery, barang, which is black magic. And getting there was a 3 hour trip by boat to like this very isolated kind of like coastal town. And this man is old, and he told me that he met an Encanto who came to him as an albino American soldier. And he didn't know he was an Encanto at first, I know. And obviously, this soldier spoke perfect Waray, which is a language in the area. which I've never met a soldier who could speak that. And then he convinced the man to trade away the lives of 3 chickens for power. But it turned out the lives of those chickens were actually his family. So his wife and his 2 children died. But then, yeah, and then he got all this power, and now he claims he's capable of killing anyone and protecting anyone. And then he showed us pictures of people he presumably killed with his witchcraft. Yeah.
Another question, again, this is sort of bringing back to, because I'd mentioned, we talk about Encanto, and obviously everybody is aware of the Disney movie. This is very different. What does Encanto mean in this particular in this particular culture? Like, where does it come from? What does it mean?
Okay, so an Encanto definitely isn't like the movie Encanto. It's more like a being that exists sort of between the spirit world and the physical world. Usually they come through Beledi trees, which is why they're so important. And so they're capable usually of great magic. They steal people from our world and bring them there, and then they don't age and they drive them insane, or they grant powers. They do all sorts of things, but essentially they're just spirits that can be either very good or very evil.
It really was such a great book, and I just think that a lot, like, read it, please. It's so good. Thank you so much, Daphne. Please come back for your next book when it comes out.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a joy. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed talking to you as well. So this was Jessikah with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was
Daphne Fama.
And we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.